Moja żena izmieniała mnie otsum wtecini 8. Let I had planned the surprise anniversary party for weeks, wanting everything to be perfect for Rachel. It was our 10th anniversary, and I wanted to show her just how much I appreciated and loved her. The house was filled with friends and family, laughter echoing off the walls, and the aroma of delicious food wafting through the air. I stood near the kitchen, a glass of champagne in hand, watching Rachel as she mingled with our guests. She looked stunning in a deep blue dress that matched her eyes, her smile radiant as she moved through the room. I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride and love. This was a night to celebrate us, our journey, and the life we had built together. The moment that shattered my world happened so quickly, it almost seemed surreal. I was chatting with a friend when I glanced across the room and saw Rachel in a quiet corner, talking to my father, David. At first it seemed innocent enough. After all, they were family. But something about the way they were standing, the way they looked at each other, sent a chill down my spine. Rachel's hand lingered on David's arm, and they were standing closer than what seemed appropriate. Their heads were tilted together, sharing a whispered conversation that felt far too intimate. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling, telling myself I was being paranoid. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Later, as the party started to wind down, I found myself wandering outside for some fresh air. The cool night breeze did little to calm the storm of thoughts swirling in my head. I leaned against the porch railing, staring out into the darkness, trying to make sense of what I had seen. It was then that I overheard them. Rachel and David were talking in hushed tones just around the corner, unaware that I was nearby. I strained to hear, catching only fragments of their conversation. "Can't let anyone find out," Rachel was saying, her voice filled with urgency. "I know, it's been 8 years, but we have to be careful," David replied, his tone equally tense. 8 years? My heart pounded in my chest as I processed what I was hearing. What could they possibly be hiding that spanned 8 years? My mind raced, connecting dots I didn't want to connect. I stepped back inside, my thoughts a tangled mess of confusion and suspicion. I needed answers, but I knew confronting them now, amid the party, would lead to nothing but a scene. I needed to be calm, collected, and most importantly, sure of what I was accusing them of. As I rejoined the party, plastering a smile on my face, I knew that my life had just taken a dark and unexpected turn. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would uncover secrets I never imagined, shatter my trust, and test my resolve in ways I had never anticipated. The following morning dawned with a lingering sense of unease. The fragments of Rachel and David's conversation echoed relentlessly in my mind. Unable to shake off the weight of suspicion, I resolved to keep a vigilant eye on them, determined to uncover the truth. It was a bright Sunday morning when Rachel proposed a family outing to the park. I agreed, hoping the change of scenery would distract me from the turmoil within. As we packed a picnic and loaded the car, I observed Rachel interacting with Alex and Emma. Her laughter, once soothing, now seemed tinged with an unfamiliar edge. Arriving at the park, Rachel's phone buzzed incessantly. Each time she glanced at it fleetingly before stowing it away. My apprehensions deepened, and I resolved to seize an opportunity to scrutinize her phone. Back at home, while Rachel busied herself with preparing dinner, I seized the chance. Her phone lay innocuously on the kitchen counter, beckoning me to unlock its secrets. Slipping into the bathroom and locking the door behind me, I fumbled with the phone, my hands trembling with anticipation and dread. Scrolling through the messages, most exchanges were mundane, routine communications with friends and family. Just as I was about to abandon hope, a thread with David caught my eye. Their messages were frequent, casual, yet unnervingly familiar. Then, buried amidst the digital chatter, I stumbled upon an older message from David, dated 8 years back. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love D," it read. I had planned the surprise anniversary party for weeks, wanting everything to be perfect for Rachel. It was our 10th anniversary, and I wanted to show her just how much I appreciated and loved her. The house was filled with friends and family, laughter echoing off the walls, and the aroma of delicious food wafting through the air. I stood near the kitchen, a glass of champagne in hand, watching Rachel as she mingled with our guests. She looked stunning in a deep blue dress that matched her eyes, her smile radiant as she moved through the room. I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride and love. This was a night to celebrate us, our journey, and the life we had built together. The moment that shattered my world happened so quickly, it almost seemed surreal. I was chatting with a friend when I glanced across the room and saw Rachel in a quiet corner, talking to my father, David. At first, it seemed innocent enough. After all, they were family. But something about the way they were standing, the way they looked at each other, sent a chill down my spine. Rachel's hand lingered on David's arm, and they were standing closer than what seemed appropriate. Their heads were tilted together, sharing a whispered conversation that felt far too intimate. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling, telling myself I was being paranoid. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Later, as the party started to wind down, I found myself wandering outside for some fresh air. The cool night breeze did little to calm the storm of thoughts swirling in my head. I leaned against the porch railing, staring out into the darkness, trying to make sense of what I had seen. It was then that I overheard them. Rachel and David were talking in hushed tones just around the corner, unaware that I was nearby. I strained to hear, catching only fragments of their conversation. "Can't let anyone find out," Rachel was saying, her voice filled with urgency. "I know, it's been 8 years, but we have to be careful," David replied, his tone equally tense. 8 years? My heart pounded in my chest as I processed what I was hearing. What could they possibly be hiding that spanned 8 years? My mind raced, connecting dots I didn't want to connect. I stepped back inside, my thoughts a tangled mess of confusion and suspicion. I needed answers, but I knew confronting them now, amid the party, would lead to nothing but a scene. I needed to be calm, collected, and most importantly, sure of what I was accusing them of. As I rejoined the party, plastering a smile on my face, I knew that my life had just taken a dark and unexpected turn. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would uncover secrets I never imagined, shatter my trust, and test my resolve in ways I had never anticipated. The following morning dawned with a lingering sense of unease. The fragments of Rachel and David's conversation echoed relentlessly in my mind. Unable to shake off the weight of suspicion, I resolved to keep a vigilant eye on them, determined to uncover the truth. It was a bright Sunday morning when Rachel proposed a family outing to the park. I agreed, hoping the change of scenery would distract me from the turmoil within. As we packed a picnic and loaded the car, I observed Rachel interacting with Alex and Emma. Her laughter, once soothing, now seemed tinged with an unfamiliar edge. Arriving at the park, Rachel's phone buzzed incessantly, each time she glanced at it fleetingly before stowing it away. My apprehensions deepened, and I resolved to seize an opportunity to scrutinize her phone. Back at home, while Rachel busied herself with preparing dinner, I seized the chance. Her phone lay innocuously on the kitchen counter, beckoning me to unlock its secrets. Slipping into the bathroom and locking the door behind me, I fumbled with the phone, my hands trembling with anticipation and dread. Scrolling through the messages, most exchanges were mundane, routine communications with friends and family. Just as I was about to abandon hope, a thread with David caught my eye. Their messages were frequent, casual, yet unnervingly familiar. Then, buried amidst the digital chatter, I stumbled upon an older message from David, dated 8 years back. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love D," it read. A cold shiver ran down my spine as the implications sank in. The timing aligned with a turbulent period in our marriage, a time when Rachel and I teetered on the brink of separation. The realization that my wife and father might have shared more than familial affection shattered my heart. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake, wrestling with the revelations gnawing at my mind. Beside me, Rachel slept peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I knew confronting them prematurely would yield only denials and further subterfuge. I needed concrete evidence, irrefutable proof to confront them with. Morning broke, and I feigned normalcy as Rachel departed for work, masking the turmoil churning beneath the surface. It was then that I made a decision that felt like a betrayal in itself. I contacted a private investigator. Mike, a seasoned professional known for unearthing truths buried deep, agreed to meet me later that day at a discreet diner on the outskirts of town. Seated in the dimly lit diner, I recounted my suspicions to Mike. His weathered face betrayed no emotion as he absorbed the gravity of my situation. I'll need access to her phone records, emails, and social media, he stipulated, scribbling notes in a tattered notebook. We'll also set up surveillance. Handing over Rachel's phone and other pertinent details, a pang of guilt gnawed at me. Yet I knew this was the sole pathway to the truth. Mike assured me he'd commence immediately, and I departed the diner with a maelstrom of emotions swirling within. Days stretched into an interminable waiting game. Mike provided sporadic updates, but substantial evidence remained elusive. Rachel and David maintained a facade of normalcy, skillfully concealing any traces of their clandestine affair. Yet I remained steadfast in my resolve. Truth inevitably finds its way into the light. One evening, ensconced in my study, the phone rang. It was Mike. "I believe we've unearthed something," he intoned gravely. "Meet me at my office tomorrow." The following day, I arrived at Mike's office with a mix of anxiety and anticipation gripping my heart. His office, cluttered with stacks of files and investigative tools, mirrored the labyrinthine complexity of my emotions. Mike motioned for me to take a seat, a thick dossier spread out before him like a map of revelations waiting to be uncovered. "It's all here," Mike intoned gravely, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. "I've gathered enough evidence to substantiate your suspicions." With trembling hands, I delved into the contents of the folder. Photographs meticulously captured Rachel and David in various clandestine meetings, dinners at intimate restaurants, stays in hotels, and even moments at our beloved family cabin. Each image painted a vivid picture of betrayal and deceit, unraveling the fabric of trust that had once bound us together. Transcripts of intercepted phone calls and copies of incriminating emails, spanning over 8 years, bore witness to the profound deception that had silently eroded our marriage. One email in particular seized my attention, a poignant missive from Rachel to David, penned during a tumultuous phase in our relationship. "I can't continue living a lie," it lamented with a raw honesty that cut to the core. "I love John, but I can't deny my feelings for you. What we share is real, and I can't bear to let it go." Anger and sorrow surged within me, colliding in a tumultuous whirlwind that left a jagged ache in its wake. The woman I cherished hadn't just strayed, she had sought solace and passion in the arms of my father. The betrayal struck deep, tearing at the very foundations of trust and love that had once defined our marriage. Yet, amidst the storm of emotions that threatened to consume me, a steely resolve began to solidify. It was time to confront them both. But not rashly. A meticulous plan needed to be crafted, ensuring irrefutable evidence and unwavering determination. Sensing the escalating turmoil within me, Mike offered his support, volunteering to oversee the impending confrontation. A neutral ground was crucial, a space where truth and consequences could meet without bias. Grateful for his steadfast assistance, I agreed. Together, we set a date for the revelation, a strategic encounter planned for the coming weekend at a location chosen by Mike, a sanctuary where the truth would be unveiled and decisions made. The days that followed were a whirlwind of trepidation and preparation. Endless scenarios and dialogues played out in my mind, each rehearsing the confrontation that loomed ahead. Sleep became elusive, and my interactions with Rachel became strained under the weight of hidden turmoil. Though she sensed my unease, she attributed it to professional stress, unaware of the tempest raging within me. The eve of the impending confrontation plunged me into an emotional vortex. In the quiet solitude of our living room, a lone bottle of whiskey stood as a silent sentinel, its amber contents offering a brief respite from the raw, unbridled ache that gripped my heart. Surrendering to the flood of emotions, I allowed myself to grieve, for the love lost, for the shattered trust, and for the uncertain future that lay ahead. Amidst the haze of intoxication and introspection, a vow emerged, a solemn promise to confront Rachel and David, to uncover the unvarnished truth, and to chart a course forward. Amidst the turmoil, one certainty crystallized. I refused to be a passive victim. I resolved to reclaim control over my life, bravely facing the daunting journey that lay ahead. Morning brought a resolute awakening. Dressing with purposeful intent, I acknowledged the weight of the day's impending revelations. Leaving the house in solemn silence, I embarked on a journey toward the designated rendezvous, a discreet conference room nestled within a quiet office enclave. There, Mike awaited me, prepared to unveil truths that would forever alter the intricate tapestry of our intertwined lives. As Rachel and David entered the sanctum, confusion etched across their faces transformed into palpable shock. The evidence before them laid bare, weaving a compelling narrative of betrayal and duplicity. The moment of reckoning had arrived, a precipice from which truth would cascade, unwavering and resolute. Rachel's face paled as she took in the photographs, transcripts, and emails laid out on the table. David, usually composed and confident, seemed equally stunned, his eyes darting from the evidence to my face. The room was thick with tension, and for a moment, no one spoke. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. "John, what is this?" Her voice trembled, and she took a hesitant step toward me. "This," I said, pointing to the evidence, "is the truth. The truth about your affair with my father. I know everything, Rachel, and I want you both to explain." David cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "John, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped, my anger boiling over. "I want to hear it from Rachel." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she glanced at David, then back at me. "John, I never meant for any of this to happen. It started 8 years ago, after our argument. I was feeling lost and vulnerable, and David, he was there for me. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were in too deep." 8 years, I repeated, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and sadness. 8 years of lies, Rachel. How could you do this to me, to our family? Rachel's tears spilled over, and she reached out to me, but I stepped back, putting distance between us. "I love you, John," she pleaded. "I never stopped loving you. I know what I did was wrong, but please believe me when I say I didn't want to hurt you." David stepped forward, his expression earnest. "John, I take full responsibility. This is my fault, and I am deeply sorry. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way." I shook my head, unable to process their words. "Sorry? Do you think sorry can fix this? You've both destroyed everything we had. How can I ever trust either of you again?" Rachel sobbed, covering her face with her hands. David stood there, looking defeated. The sight of them, so broken, only fueled my anger. "I can't do this," I said, my voice breaking. "I need time to think. I need space." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them behind. The weight of their betrayal was suffocating, and I needed to breathe, to clear my head. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, and I took a deep, shuddering breath. My life had just been turned upside down, and I had no idea what to do next. In the days following the confrontation, I felt like a ghost, moving through life in a daze. I stayed at a hotel, unable to face the house that now felt like a lie. Rachel called and texted constantly, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what my next steps would be. I spent hours walking through the city trying to clear my mind. I thought about the years I had spent with Rachel, the memories we had made, the family we had built. Could I throw it all away because of her betrayal? And what about David? He was my father, someone I had always looked up to. How could I ever forgive him for this? One evening, as I sat by the river watching the sunset, I realized I needed to talk to someone. I called my best friend Mark and asked him to meet me. Mark had always been a steady presence in my life, and I trusted his judgment. When Mark arrived, I poured out everything that had happened, sparing no details. He listened patiently, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. "John, this is a tough situation. There's no easy answer here. But you need to ask yourself what you want. Can you see yourself moving past this? Can you rebuild trust with Rachel and your father? Or is it time to walk away?" I stared at the water, considering his words. "I don't know, Mark. Part of me wants to try and salvage what we have, for the sake of our kids. But another part of me is so angry and hurt, I don't know if I can ever forgive them." Mark nodded. "Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you truly want. Don't let anger drive your decision. Take the time you need to figure it out. And remember, you're not alone. We're all here for you." His words offered some comfort, but the decision still weighed heavily on my mind. As I returned to my hotel that night, I knew I needed to talk to Rachel again, to see if there was any hope of salvaging our relationship. The next day, I called Rachel and asked her to meet me at a nearby park. She agreed, her voice filled with a mix of relief and apprehension. When I arrived, I saw her sitting on a bench, her face pale and drawn. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. I sat down beside her, keeping some distance between us. "Rachel, I need to know why. Why did you do it?" She took a deep breath, wiping her eyes. "John, I never meant for it to go this far. It started during that rough patch we had. I felt so alone and vulnerable, and David, he was there for me in a way I needed. But I never stopped loving you. I was just so confused and scared." I looked at her, searching her face for the truth. "And what about now? Do you still have feelings for him?" Rachel shook her head vehemently. "No, John. Whatever we had, it's over. I realized long ago that it was a mistake, but I didn't know how to end it without hurting you even more. I love you, and I want to make things right." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "It's not that simple, Rachel. You've broken my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. But for the sake of our kids, I want to try. We need to go to counseling, to work through this together, and you need to cut all ties with my father." Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with hope. "I'll do whatever it takes, John. I want to save our marriage. I'll go to counseling, I'll cut ties with David, anything to make this right." I nodded slowly, knowing this would be a long and difficult journey. "Okay, let's try. But if I ever feel like you're not being honest with me, or if I can't move past this, then we have to consider other options." Rachel reached out and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you, John. I won't let you down." As we sat there holding hands, I knew this was just the beginning of a long road to healing. But for the sake of our family, I was willing to try. The weeks that followed were a profound odyssey of emotional recovery, marked by countless counseling sessions and heart-wrenching conversations. Rachel and I courageously bared our souls, laying bare all our feelings, fears, and aspirations. The process was agonizingly necessary. We had to dismantle the fractured remnants of our relationship to rebuild its foundation, brick by painstaking brick. David's attempts to reconnect with me echoed persistently, yet I found myself unable to confront him. The wounds inflicted were still raw, the betrayal cutting deep. Instead, I immersed myself in nurturing my bond with Rachel, hoping that in time, I could muster the courage to confront the unresolved issues involving my father. Our children, Alex and Emma, keenly sensed the palpable tension pervading our home. Despite our efforts to shield them from the worst of it, they were perceptive enough to discern the unease. Nevertheless, we persisted in preserving a semblance of normalcy, steadfastly committing to family time. Through these shared moments, we sought solace and stability. Gradually, a sense of renewal began to blossom. Rachel and I tentatively rekindled our connection, rediscovering moments of genuine affection and profound understanding amid the wreckage. It was an arduous journey fraught with setbacks and doubts, yet each small step forward became a beacon of hope. One tranquil evening, after tucking the children into bed, Rachel and I found ourselves on the porch, enveloped by the soothing embrace of the cool night air. "Thank you for giving us another chance," Rachel murmured, leaning into my shoulder. Drawing her closer, I wrapped my arm around her, a surge of love and gratitude washing over me. "I love you, Rachel," I whispered, my voice tinged with earnestness, "and I want to believe that we can navigate through this storm. But it won't be easy. It will take time." Her gaze met mine, resolute and unwavering. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes, John," she affirmed, her voice steady with determination. "I won't give up on us." In that poignant moment, as our eyes locked in silent communion, I realized with startling clarity that despite the tumultuous journey we had endured, my love for Rachel remained steadfast and profound. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, for the first time in weeks, a spark of hope flickered within me. Together, we would confront the trials ahead and embark on the formidable task of rebuilding our lives, one tender step at a time. With Rachel and me working hard to mend our relationship, I knew it was time to face the other person at the heart of this betrayal, my father. Avoiding him wasn't going to solve anything. I needed answers, closure, and perhaps even some semblance of understanding. One Saturday morning, I decided to visit my father's house. As I drove there, memories of my childhood flashed through my mind. The fishing trips, the backyard barbecues, the way he used to ruffle my hair and call me champ. The man who had been my hero had now become a source of profound pain. When I arrived, I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. My father opened the door, looking older and more worn than I remembered. The weight of his guilt and our estrangement was evident in his eyes. "John," he said quietly, stepping aside to let me in. We sat in the living room, the silence between us heavy and charged. Finally, I spoke. "Why, Dad? Why did you do it?" He looked down at his hands, which were clasped tightly together. "I wish I had a simple answer, son. Your mother and I drifted apart after she got sick. I felt so alone, and when Rachel came to me, vulnerable and hurt, I made a terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head, struggling to hold back my anger. "You betrayed me, Dad. You betrayed Mom's memory. How could you do that?" Tears filled his eyes as he looked at me. "I know I failed you, John. I can never take back what I did, but I'm truly sorry. I understand if you never want to see me again." I took a deep breath, trying to process his words. "It's going to take a long time for me to even think about forgiving you. Right now, I need space. I need to focus on my family and rebuilding what you and Rachel broke." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. Just know that I love you, son, and I'm here if you ever want to talk." I stood up, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. "Goodbye, Dad." As I walked out of his house, I felt a strange sense of relief. The confrontation had been painful, but it was a necessary step toward healing. I knew I had a long way to go, but at least now I could begin to move forward. Back home, Rachel and I continued our regular counseling sessions, each session a testament to our commitment to honesty and openness, no matter how challenging the discussions became. Over time, the wounds of betrayal began to mend, and the fragile strands of trust gradually began to weave themselves anew. Our children, Alex and Emma, keenly observed the transformation. They witnessed moments of shared laughter, glimpses of us holding hands, and the return of a sense of unity in our family. It wasn't flawless, but it marked a promising beginning. We embarked on family outings to the park, engaged in lively board game nights, and endeavored to forge new, joyful memories together. One serene evening, after the children had drifted into sleep, Rachel and I found ourselves once again on the porch, where we had vowed to embark on this journey of renewal. "John," Rachel began softly, reaching out to take my hand. "I want us to renew our vows. I want us to make new promises to each other, surrounded by our loved ones." I met her gaze, overwhelmed by the sincerity and depth of her love. "I would love that," I replied, a warmth spreading through my chest. "I would love that more than anything." Together, we began to plan a modest yet intimate ceremony. It wasn't about erasing the challenges of the past, but about embracing them as part of our shared history and choosing to move forward, hand in hand. Our friends and family gathered around us, including Mark, who stood proudly as my best man. As Rachel walked down the aisle, radiant and resplendent, my heart swelled with love and gratitude. We had weathered storms that had tested our resolve, but here we stood, stronger and more dedicated than ever. When she reached my side, we clasped hands, ready to confront whatever lay ahead as a united front. Our vows, spoken with heartfelt simplicity, echoed the depth of our commitment. "I promise to always be truthful, to stand by you through all challenges, and to love you unconditionally," I pledged, my voice unwavering and sincere. Tears of joy glistened in Rachel's eyes as she responded, her voice filled with emotion. "And I promise the same to you, John. I love you deeply, and I'm grateful for this second chance." With a tender kiss, we sealed our renewed commitment, enveloped by a profound sense of peace and optimism. The road ahead might still hold uncertainties and obstacles, but fortified by our love and mutual dedication, we were prepared to face it together, as partners and as a steadfast family. The months that unfolded after our vow renewal marked a period of profound growth and renewal. Rachel and I remained steadfast in our commitment to counseling, both individually and as a couple. Through these sessions, we gleaned invaluable tools for communication, mutual support, and the gradual reconstruction of trust. Our family life blossomed. Alex and Emma exuded a newfound sense of contentment and security, reassured by the unity and cooperation between their parents. We immersed ourselves in shared experiences, cherishing every moment that solidified our bond as a family. Simultaneously, I embarked on a slow and deliberate journey to mend my fractured relationship with my father. It was a path fraught with challenges, where the echoes of past betrayals often resurfaced painfully. Yet I realized that harboring bitterness and resentment only perpetuated my suffering. Over time, through tentative conversations and moments of shared understanding, we began to rediscover common ground, gradually rebuilding the fragile threads of our bond. One poignant day, while quietly fishing beside the tranquil river, my father turned to me with a gaze filled with both pride and humility. "John, I'm proud of you," he began earnestly. "You've shown more strength and forgiveness than I ever thought possible." I met his gaze, emotions swirling within me. "I'm trying, Dad," I replied, my voice tinged with vulnerability. "For my family and myself. We all make mistakes, but I'm learning that it's how we choose to move forward that defines us." He nodded sagely, a profound sense of understanding passing between us. "You're right, son," he acknowledged softly, "and I'm here for you, whatever you need." As we continued to fish, the golden hues of the setting sun casting a serene glow upon us, a sense of peace settled within me. The journey toward healing was arduous and laden with obstacles, yet with Rachel, my cherished children, and even my father standing beside me, I felt fortified. Our past no longer dictated our future. It was our choices, our enduring love, and our unwavering commitment to each other that would shape the path ahead. Life began to find a new rhythm. Rachel and I discovered a way not just to coexist as partners, but to thrive as individuals who deeply respected each other. Our renewed vows symbolized a fresh start, but the real work happened in the everyday moments, sharing laughter over breakfast, supporting each other through stressful days, and being present for our children. One sunny afternoon, Rachel suggested we visit my mother's grave together. The cemetery was peaceful, with the sun casting gentle shadows over the neatly arranged tombstones. As we walked hand in hand, I felt a mixture of emotions, grief for the loss of my mother and gratitude for Rachel's presence. When we reached my mother's grave, Rachel placed a bouquet of her favorite flowers on the headstone. We stood in silence for a few moments, each lost in our thoughts. I knelt, tracing the letters of my mother's name carved into the stone. Memories of her flooded back, and I felt a tear escape my eye. Rachel knelt beside me and took my hand. "She'd be proud of you," she said softly. Her words were a balm to my soul, easing the lingering pain of my past. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't just about moving on from past mistakes. It was about honoring those who had shaped us, acknowledging their influence, and striving to live in a way that would make them proud. At that moment, I forgave myself for the years of distance and anger. I forgave my father for his flaws and the hurt he had caused. Most importantly, I forgave life for its unpredictability and embraced the beauty of the present. Rachel and I walked back to the car, our bond stronger than ever. As we drove home, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known in years. Forgiveness has been the key to unlocking this new chapter of our lives. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Our family settled into a comfortable routine. Every evening we gathered around the dinner table, sharing stories about our day and making plans for the future. The children's laughter filled the house, and Rachel's smile became a constant source of joy. One weekend we decided to take a trip to the mountains. The kids were excited, packing their bags with toys and snacks, while Rachel and I prepared for the journey. The drive was long, but the scenic beauty of the mountains made it worthwhile. We reached our cabin in the late afternoon. The air was crisp, and the landscape was breathtaking. We spent the evening exploring the area, hiking through the woods, and marveling at the wildlife. The kids ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees. That night we gathered around a campfire. The stars were bright in the clear night sky, and the warmth of the fire brought a cozy feeling of contentment. Rachel and I sat close together, watching the flames dance. As we talked, I realized how far we had come. The journey of forgiveness and rebuilding had been challenging, but it had brought us closer than ever. Our love had deepened, and our family had become stronger. The next morning, we woke up to a stunning sunrise. The sky was painted with hues of pink and orange, and the mountains stood majestically against the horizon. We sat on the porch, sipping our coffee and taking in the beauty of the new day. Rachel turned to me and smiled. "This is what it's all about," she said. "Moments like these." I nodded, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real and beautiful in its way. We had faced our challenges, learned from them, and emerged stronger. As we packed up and prepared to head home, I felt a sense of excitement for the future. We had a new dawn ahead of us, filled with possibilities and opportunities. And whatever came our way, I knew we would face it together, with love, strength, and forgiveness guiding our path. The journey of healing and rebuilding was ongoing, but with each step, we were creating a life filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The return from the mountains marked a new phase in our lives. The tranquility and beauty we experienced had reawakened our dreams and aspirations. Rachel and I decided it was time to revisit some of the plans we had set aside during the turmoil of the past years. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, we sat down with a bottle of wine and a notebook. We began to list all the things we wanted to achieve, both individually and as a family. It was a long and heartfelt conversation, filled with laughter, dreams, and even a few tears. Rachel had always wanted to start a small business, a bakery that combined her love for cooking with her desire to create a welcoming space for the community. We decided it was time to turn that dream into reality. I promised to support her in every way possible, from finding the perfect location to handling the financial aspects. For me, the dream was to finish the book I had started years ago. Writing had always been a passion of mine, but life's challenges had pushed it to the back burner. With Rachel's encouragement, I committed to setting aside time each day to write. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Rachel found a charming little shop in the heart of our town, and we spent countless hours renovating and decorating it. The kids were enthusiastic helpers, painting walls and setting up displays. It became a family project, bringing us even closer together. Meanwhile, I immersed myself in my writing. Each morning I would wake up early, before the rest of the house stirred, and pour my thoughts onto the pages. The process was cathartic, allowing me to process our journey and the lessons we had learned. The grand opening of Rachel's bakery was a resounding success. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers filled the shop, eager to taste her delicious creations. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and joy, a testament to Rachel's hard work and dedication. As I watched her interact with customers, her eyes sparkling with happiness, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. My book also began to take shape. The story flowed naturally, inspired by our experiences and the strength of our family. It wasn't just a book, it was a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love and forgiveness. As the seasons changed, our lives settled into a comfortable and fulfilling routine. Rachel's bakery became a beloved fixture in the community, and my book neared completion. The children thrived, their laughter and curiosity filling our home with endless joy. One crisp autumn day, as the leaves turned vibrant shades of red and gold, we decided to take a family trip to a nearby lake. It was a place we had visited often in the early days of our marriage, and it held a special significance for us. We spent the day fishing, hiking, and enjoying each other's company. In the evening, we gathered around a bonfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The sky was clear, and the stars shone brightly, casting a magical glow over the water. As I looked around at my family, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had weathered many storms, but we had come out stronger, more united, and more in love than ever before. Our journey had been one of healing and growth, and it had led us to this beautiful moment. Rachel snuggled closer to me, her head resting on my shoulder. "We've come a long way," she said softly. I nodded, squeezing her hand, and we have so much more to look forward to. The next morning, we watched the sunrise over the lake, its golden rays reflecting on the calm water. It was a new beginning, a promise of the wonderful adventures that lay ahead. As we packed up and headed home, I felt a deep sense of peace. Our story was far from over. We would face new challenges, experience new joys, and continue to build our dreams. But whatever the future held, I knew we would face it together, with love as our guiding light. We arrived home where the everyday chaos of life awaited us. But it was chaos filled with love, laughter, and the endless possibilities of a new beginning. And as I looked at my family, I knew that this was the greatest adventure of all. With Rachel by my side and our children growing and thriving, we were ready for whatever life had in store. We had learned to embrace the beauty of the present, to cherish each moment, and to dream boldly for the future. As we stood together on the threshold of this new chapter, I felt a profound sense of joy and anticipation for the journey ahead.